With the future of the Justice Department on the line, let's bring in MS Now senior White House reporter Vaughn Hilliard, MS Now senior national security reporter David Rode, and our legal analyst, former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance. I just want to say both gentlemen on set with me are working and reporting as we're having this conversation. So please bring that to us as you have it. But this seems like an interesting tactic on the part of the president.
This is a heck of a moment here in which the president of the United States has two men seemingly serving in the same position. And Bill Pulte, his acting director of national intelligence, and Jay Clayton, his now confirmed director of national intelligence, who has not been sworn in. It's now been almost a week. And I'm just told here in the last few seconds that, in fact, Bill Pulte is still the acting director of national intelligence. This is according to a White House official, and that Jay Clayton, even though he is in the room at this cabinet meeting, he has not been sworn in, but he will be sworn in, quote, soon. What does soon mean? That's not exactly clear, but the president clearly still turning to Bill Pulte, who has time and again over the course of the last year and a half premised the president to provide him material on an array of fronts that the president wants delivered. And so the question here is...
There are a lot of questions here.
The question here in my mind, and I'll let it go from there, is the fact that who is telling him cyber attack or apparent Iran cyber attack on U.S. water facilities? And is he just sitting there, what Bill Pulte has access to and what Bill Pulte is telling the president? And just how much does it run contrary to what U.S. intel actually has in terms of documents that are classified?
Do you have a sense, and if you do, can you sort of catch me up on this, which is ordinarily, if someone were confirmed as DNI, how quickly before it is that they are sworn in and before they start receiving briefs like the one Vaughn just detailed?
Immediately. Our Deputy Bureau Chief, Kate Farrell, that's a name, checking this morning, had people on our desk look. Every other Trump cabinet member who was confirmed in the second term took office within a day. So it's just puzzling about why Jay Clayton wouldn't take office. And I think, I'm not sure, Vaughn, and we're all being open and honest here, he's the acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. I think he already has some kind of security clearance. They deal with a lot of cases there that involve intelligence information. So I'm just baffled. Why? Again, there is according to a separate source I spoke to earlier, Iran is likely behind the attack on dozens of water systems in the state of Minnesota. We are at war with Iran, and we were talking about the director of national intelligence. Why isn't Senate-confirmed Jay Clayton in that job right now dealing with a cyber attack on the United States? Bill Pulte is 38 years old. He's the head of the top federal mortgage agency in the government, and he has no experience in intelligence whatsoever. He has, pleased the president by helping him do a speech about, the possible election breaches, which there's no proof of any kind back in 2020. So here we are facing a national security crisis. You have two men sitting there. The less experienced one is the acting director.
All right, let's put a pin in what is happening with the DNI because I'm going to have our producers listen in. Currently, Scott Bessent is speaking. I want to talk, though, about what is happening with another acting head, the acting attorney general. Explain to me the president's logic of blowing up on Cornyn on the heels of having Cornyn and Blanche meet.
The president wants the $1.7 billion slush fund and clearly wants the legal immunity for his family and himself from IRA tax audits. There's nothing else that can explain that. And the senators can try to give, the president the benefit of the doubt by pinpointing it on a legal advisor. But the legal advisors know who they're working for. There's one guy, Boris Epshteyn, who has been with the president since 2015. He's sort of his main legal wrangler. He was somebody in 2023, 2024 that folks maybe saw. He was the one who was essentially helping pick who his legal counsel would be to help him defend himself against all those multiple of indictments. He's the one that has been behind the lawsuits that have been filed against news organizations on behalf of the president. And so this is not just some legal outside advisor. But in terms of blowing up at John Cornyn and Thom Tillis, this is more power, or I should say these two men have always had this power, but they have chosen for the purposes of trying to push forward their own agendas up on Capitol Hill legislatively to try to placate the president. And now this is a moment where they both only have a couple months left and they're actually taking principled stands here and are unwilling to back down to the demands that are being set on them.
You have Republican Senator John Kennedy issuing this warning to the president about pressing pause on Blanche until the next Congress. Take a listen.
Do you think it's risky to wait for January to try and get Blanche through as a permanent AG?
Do I think what?
Do you think it's risky to wait until January for the 120th Congress?
Well, duh. Yeah. Yeah, this place could be very different.
Well, duh, I could not quite find those words myself, but I do think that captures the sentiment. I mean, just less than 24 hours ago, you had the president saying, I'm happy to wait until January when the two of you are no longer here. Mm-hmm. What is interesting about the message he posted on Truth Social is that he has now reverted to his original position, which is that Blanche needs to be confirmed today. Is that because he or other folks in the administration are reading the tea leaves and understanding that there may actually be more Republican senators who are willing to pump the brakes on this than just Tillis and Cornyn?
And they suggested that effectively they were standing in the way of other Republican senators, perhaps names that we're not even privy to that would surprise us, or people like Susan Collins, who is actively trying to run for re-election in the state of Maine, a pivotal race for him. We haven't really heard Susan Collins be vocal because they've been the ones standing in the way for him. But also, he would like to get some of their help, right? The idea of passing anything in the course of the next months is going to require that Republican majority. And I think it is important, too, that he also knows from conversations with outside legal advisors to the president that he can use the Vacancies Act, effectively giving him all of the power he needs. Todd Blanche has 210 days. And if the president were to withdraw that nomination because the Senate hadn't moved on it, there's then another 200-day clock that begins. At that end of that 210 days, you can then renominate him and put him forward for the attorney general position and effectively add 210 plus 210 plus 210. You're getting close to 2 years. I mean, the president could try to circumvent Congress. And I think that's to John Kennedy's point. What is the advantage of waiting if Democrats were to hold the majorities? I mean,
right. Well, what is the danger, Joyce, to the American people of 600 plus days of an acting attorney general?
You know, normally we would not want to see an acting attorney general, but let's put that on hold for a second, because we're talking about Todd Blanche, the president's former criminal defense lawyer, someone who gives the appearance of acting for the president, not the people in place. And that's a difficult situation, Alicia. Donald Trump gets to name the attorney general for as long as he's in office. The fact that Todd Blanche is his first, I guess his second choice for the job is extremely telling. But the reality, as Vaughn suggests, is that it would be possible to keep him in place indefinitely as an acting. That might have been some of what was behind Trump's initial tweets yesterday, saying that he would withdraw the nomination, because there's a possibility under these picayune rules that control the Vacancies Act that being rejected by the Senate could impact that. But the reality here is that there's a certain ineffable gravitas that attaches to being Senate confirmed. You know, even for mere U.S. attorneys like myself, certainly for an attorney general, having the imprimatur of the Senate on that nominee says that they are constitutionally in place, and it speaks volumes inside the building to Justice Department employees. It also carries weight in the community. Frankly, Todd Blanche, without that confirmation, is in a much weaker position, particularly as he carries out Trump's personal agenda, not what people, I think, across the political spectrum would recognize as a legitimate Justice Department agenda.